Hey Canada, I'm Jon Montgomery. I'm reimagining classic recipes with bold Canadian ingredients and sharing the stories behind our iconic food. Ready to celebrate our culinary heritage? This is Savour the North. I love our country. I love Canada and everything that it has to offer. The recipes in this series have been inspired by my childhood and my experiences across this land of ours. Friday night in the Montgomery household, it means one thing: pizza night! We're sharing a community dish that we've all built together, and that's what's inspired this dish. Friday flatbread with honey. Before we get started, have a look in your pantry, and if you need a few things, it's a good chance to swing by your grocery store and pick them up. While you're there, be sure to look for that red maple leaf. We all know that it means an awful lot. First, it's all about the figs. Let's get them sliced up and ready to go. I'm gonna do one more. Looks like we got enough figs there for a flatbread. Let's get them into a bowl and over to the stove to be sizzled in a warm pan with a little bit of olive oil.
Now it's time to add the star of the show. The delicious, sweet, sticky, gloriously golden Bee Maid Honey. Get that into the skillet, coating the figs. Look at that.
And now, in a small pot, we're gonna make our glaze with some more Bee Maid Honey.
You probably haven't thought much about where your honey comes from, but here's the sweet scoop. When you choose Canadian, Bee Maid Honey has been the buzzworthy favorite since 1954. Bee Maid isn't your typical honey company. It's a co-op, meaning that it's proudly owned by actual Canadian beekeepers. Over 300 of them spread across the vast and buzzing Canadian prairies. Real deal folks who understand both the sweet nectar and the sharp sting of the trade. Like this genuine honey hero, Dwayne Drinkwater.
Been doing bees for 67 years.
And his son Trevor Drinkwater, who's also been hard at work alongside of his dad.
It's been now 53 years basically.
That's a whopping 120 combined years of bee mastery. If there's anyone who can navigate a hive, it's the Drinkwaters.
I started in 56 with 2 beehives. Now we have about 400, give or take.
From 2 hives to hundreds. Now that's dedication with wings. And while the hives you're seeing here belong to other Bee Maid members, it's beekeepers like the Drinkwaters who truly represent the spirit and quality behind every delicious drop.
Well, you always try to make it a little better, of course.
And making it better means showing up every day, no matter how many stings it takes.
You learn to cuss a little bit.
That'll never quit till you can't move no more. And in farm life, you can't beat it.
And you certainly can't beat the quality of the honey harvested by dedicated beekeepers like Dwayne and Trevor. Bee Maid proudly stands as Canada's first honey packer to earn True Source certification, guaranteeing honey that's 100% pure, authentic, and traceable right back to the beekeepers' hives.
If the co-op wasn't there, the honey industry would be quite different in Canada. I think you'd be more of a U.S. run situation, whereas with the co-ops we've got our Canadian brand, and when you say Bee Maid, everybody knows what Bee Maid is. It's gained that popularity and people just know.
And knowing that Bee Maid supports hardworking Canadian beekeepers like the Drinkwaters is precisely why Bee Maid Honey is the golden star of my Friday flatbread.
All right, now that we've got that finished, let's get our flatbreads ready. Throw them on there. I'm gonna drizzle them with a little bit of olive oil, brush it around so that they crisp up in the oven. Well, that flatbread is warming up. We're gonna move on to one of my favorite main courses. We're gonna call it Biscuits in the Basket. Why? Because like a lot of Canadian kids, I played hockey growing up. After school, at recess, on the weekends, in the evenings, all blinking winter. And so where did I get that energy? Carbo loading, of course, like every good kid back in the day. Savory meat pucks cradled by ever-loving spaghetti nets. And it's gonna be paired with a crispy Parmesan chip for that perfect crunch. Let's get started with prepping those pucks. I'm gonna start with some breadcrumbs.
Into the bowl they go. Parmesan cheese joins the party, and a lightly beaten egg to bind it all together. Now add a couple of cloves of minced garlic for a little punch, and don't forget to add a pinch of salt for good measure.
Get your hands in there, knead it all together. You need to knead it. You really need to knead it. Combine it into a ball, plop, pat, perfect puck. Make our pasta sauce.
Start with fresh, local grape tomatoes and scatter them on a pan and drizzle with a little olive oil. Toss in some shallots and garlic. Sprinkle with a little salt and pepper before popping them in the oven to roast while we whip up our crispy Parmesan chips.
I'm gonna grate nice pile of Parmesan on a
Tray with some parchment paper. Now we're gonna make chips. Pinch about a tablespoon amount of Parmesan and form a nice little chip. Once you have all your chips formed, it's into the oven.
Oh, and there's our beautiful tomatoes going into the food processor. Woo-wee!
Next, let's sizzle up our meat hooks in some hot oil. Just a few minutes on each side until, voila, perfectly cooked. And our Parmesan chips, crispy perfection.
And lastly, we have our pasta. I'm using Primo Pasta because they're another 100% Canadian-owned company.
Primo Pasta has been cooking up authentic Italian goodness for over 70 years at their legendary pasta plant just north of Toronto, overseen by this fine specimen of pasta perfection, John Porco. John's been involved in the pasta business since I was still in diapers.
Well, I've been part of the organization for 44 years.
Easy there, John. No need to remind everybody how old we're getting.
It's amazing. I started when I was 10, though.
10?
I'm joking.
All jokes aside, let's roll back the dough even further, way back to 1956. A young pasta protege named Primo Pollinato that is, recognized Canada's exploding pasta craze after World War II, fueled by Italian and European immigrants hungry for a little taste of home.
The demand for pasta was incredible, and there really wasn't a lot of pasta manufacturing facilities in Canada.
Primo was way ahead of the curve, at least until 1987, when the company faced a tough decision and went corporate.
It's important to understand it went from private ownership, went through some multinational ownerships.
Translation? Primo's Canadian identity was sent bouncing around like a meatball between American owners for many years, until Sunbright Foods stepped onto the scene, a proudly Canadian family-run business with their maple leaf-shaped eyes fixed firmly on bringing Primo home. And in 2006, they did just that, returning the pasta legend to Canadian hands, and from there, it was smooth sailing.
Day one, we realized that the machinery we had in this plant was not really delivering the quality of product that we wanted.
Ouch! Turns out Primo's pasta plant needed a little more than a facelift. It needed an entire pasta plasti. That meant modernizing machinery and sourcing Primo's signature ingredient, Canadian-grown Durham wheat from local farmers. And around these pasta parts, nobody knows more about Durham wheat than plant manager Matthew Ferris.
For pasta, it's used because, one, the color of the semolina, two, for the protein, and then there's also HVK, which is hard vitreous kernel.
Of course, the hard vitreous kernel. Sounds important.
It has to be 80% for it to be called a grade 1.
I believe you, but sourcing fancy wheat was only half the battle. Primo's pasta plant was overdue for a serious tech upgrade too.
There's been a lot of investments done in the plant with new processing equipment, new packaging lines, robotic palletizing cells. We've almost doubled the amount of employees we have. We've gone from about 50 employees to about 100. There's been a lot of growth.
Quickly, we saw the results. The results were very positive. The quality is exceptional.
Exceptional indeed, especially because Primo can mill their own wheat on site. A fresh approach no other Canadian pasta maker can match.
The time that we get wheat into the plant to a finished pasta could be 4 hours to 8 hours. In that window, depending on the product, we can have wheat to finished product in 4 to 8 hours.
It's Primo's unique, lightning-fast process that consistently delivers unbeatable fresh pasta. But one big burning question remains: which noodle reigns supreme?
Spaghetti is probably the hero on the table for the last century.
And it's the only hero that I'll ever let cradle my delicate meat biscuits. And now that it's cooking nicely
in our boiling water, let's move on to dessert. We're taking a childhood classic and making it unforgettable.
with a Bear Paws Tiramisu Torte.
It's tasty, it's delicious, and it's the perfect way to say happy birthday to a Canadian favorite.
Because this year, Bear Paws is celebrating a milestone.
We're gonna start with mixing mascarpone with whipped cream. It's time for the star of the show, Bear Paws. We're gonna take our Bear Paw cookies, we're gonna soak them. So let's get those nicely coated in a little bit of chocolate milk. We're gonna make a base layer right on the very bottom. Now let's work on our perimeter edge. These guys are gonna go flat part facing in. Topographical changes just like our country. All right, I think we got our perimeter. Time to get in the cream. You're gonna use half of what's in your bowl, so don't go crazy. The more, smash. Push it up against your Bear Paw perimeter. Sounds hardcore.
But not as hardcore as the epic Canadian saga behind Dare Foods, the proudly homegrown company that brought us these legendary Bear Paws.
We were created by a Canadian 136 years ago, so 1889.
That pioneering Canadian was Charles Dare, a young entrepreneur who, unbeknownst to him, was destined to lay the groundwork for one of Canada's tastiest success stories, armed with only flour, sugar, and a pinch of ambition.
Well, I actually started with a store. It was really to help people who are immigrating across Canada get supplies as they went and settled the West.
And in the grocery store in the back of it, they had a bakery. They started to make and bake cookies and candies.
And when Charles wisely shifted his focus entirely to baked goods, Dare Foods quickly became a bustling baking powerhouse, staffed with local employees blissfully unaware that their fearless leader Charles would soon pass away, leaving the entire company in the hands of his orphaned grandson, Carl Dare. And that's exactly what happened in the early 1940s. Carl Dare, barely 23 years old, inherited the company and confidently continued building on his grandfather's cookie kingdom, a dream come true for any young entrepreneur. Until a devastating fire reduced the entire factory to ashes in 1945.
When the fire happened, it basically destroyed the building.
That left 25-year-old Carl with a huge decision: pocket the insurance payout and pivot into a different career, or rebuild everything from scratch. So, what did young Carl choose?
He chose very boldly and optimistically to invest and buy a new parcel of land, 16 acres. And he was optimistic that cookies, crackers, and candy was the way of the future for him.
And oh boy, was he right! Carl's bold decision propelled Dare Foods onto a cookie-paved path towards massive success. Over the next several decades, the company flourished under Carl's savvy leadership. Fast forward to today, and Dare Foods is a cutting-edge cookie empire cranking out a staggering 3,000 Bear Paws every minute, thanks to state-of-the-art technology and passionate cookie crafters who genuinely love their jobs.
I love working here. It's a sweet job.
Sweet indeed, because Bear Paws aren't just any cookie, they're Canada's #1 kids cookie brand, the snack that parents and kids agree on. Wait, are they cookies, muffins, granola bars? Seriously, what exactly is a Bear Paw?
I think from my perspective, I think it's that combination. It's not a cookie, it's not a granola bar, it's not a muffin. There's nothing else like it.
Quite frankly, there's nothing else that sells like it.
It is our #1 seller, by far.
And this top paw is celebrating 50 glorious years as one of Canada's favorite snacks. A true Canadian success story as rich and layered as my Bear Paws Tiramisu Torte, which still needs its second layer of chocolate milk dipped Bear Paws.
There you go. Now, this is why we saved our last little bit. Is looking pretty finished, my folks. But it needs to go in the fridge to set up. Gonna go 4 hours in that fridge. All right, now that these bad boys are crispified, we're ready to assemble.
Let's spread out those honey-glazed figs, layer on slices of savory prosciutto, and finish it off with some creamy fior di latte, mozzarella's sophisticated cousin, and finally,
we got our pistachios. Let's get glazed. We're gonna take the glaze, we're gonna very liberally drizzle it over our flatbread because bees have worked so hard to make this.
And after a pinch of salt, we're ready for some microgreens.
Pluck, plop, pull apart, and scatter. Like the diaspora of Canadiana.
To finish our pasta masterpiece, combine the roasted tomato sauce with our Primo spaghetti. Spin it into charming little spaghetti nets because we're about to get these biscuits in the basket, baby. And as I give each dish its finishing touches, I'm reminded that
Canadian products don't just taste incredible in these recipes, they mean something. Hoo-hoo-hoo-hoo! Look at that! They remind us where we come from. They connect us to our communities, our traditions, and the people behind the labels. These aren't just brands, they're part of our story. They've invested in Canada, in the people, in the land. And every time we choose them, we're giving something back. So thanks for joining me today. Keep cooking, keep sharing, and keep celebrating the best of what this country has to offer. This is what it means to savor the North.